Good evening. Today is the 24th day of October 2015. We continue our explorations in Savitri with Alok. And we are still continuing on Book 1, Canto 5. In 1967, Mother wrote, in her own hand, "The importance of Savitri is immense. Its subject is universal. Its revelation is prophetic. The time spent in its atmosphere is not wasted. It will be a happy compensation for the feverish haste men put now in all they do."
Wow. 67. She spoke about the feverish haste.
Yeah.
Sounds like yesterday.
Yes. So we are beginning.
Yes, we are beginning on page 80.
80.
And two very interesting lines. It starts with these two very interesting lines, which are almost like paradoxical movements. In a divine retreat from mortal thought, in a prodigious gesture of soul sight. So there is at once a retreat, a going backward as it were, and a prodigious gesture of soul sight, something which sees far in advance. And it's very interesting because plenty of suggestions here, and one which is very important for all of us is that we use the word retreat. People go into the mountains, they go into silence, they go into forest, and they go away from the feverish haste of life. But we continue to carry the web of thoughts which surrounds us, and it's this from which it is important to make a strategic retreat. This is a very strategic retreat, because if we continue to fight with the thoughts, to debate, to discuss, to argue points of views, then there is no end to this. It's a maze in which human nature can be caught.
Yes.
And there is no limit to it. So at some point, all that we need to do is to retreat.
Strategic retreat. Beautifully said.
Yes. And Aurobindo uses this word retreat several times in many, many ways. It's a very strategic retreat, so that we can withdraw from this whole maze. If we are there in it, we are caught. And then a new world, a soul sight begins to open up, which shows us the beyond.
In a prodigious
gesture. And look at this other line. His being towered into pathless heights. So, very often we speak about Aurobindo's path, the mother's path. I love to use this word, the pathless path. When you walk on narrow lanes, then you speak about the path. When you speak about walking in a township or a city, then you speak about roads. But when you enter the highest reaches of Himalayas, when you step into the sky, when you swim into the ocean, what path do you speak about? Everywhere there is path. All around is the path. So pathless heights, where all human tracks, they vanish because they have not been able to go beyond that point. So at once there is a suggestion of a path which is so vast that you can't say that you can't limit it to this or that trail. Also a suggestion where none has gone. It's a pathless height in the mountains beyond a certain point. And even if someone has gone, there is no trail left of that. You have to walk alone with the infinite, the absolute. So it's a very powerful and towered into. Look at it, he's not walking, he's not flying. He is growing into that, into a immensity, naked of its vesture of humanity. You can't go there if you have the human consciousness. There is a story, this retreat and naked of its vesture of humanity, they remind me of two stories. One is this divine retreat. Here it is from mortal thought, and how sometimes strategic retreats are better. So in Sri Krishna legend, right? Legend, right?
Legend.
we have this story of Kaliyavan, who is a terrible force which has come from outside, and this is depicted as a human being, but obviously representative of a force. And Sri Krishna has to battle him. But what he does is, instead, he begins to run away. And Kaliyavan is after him. That's how he gets the name Ranachod, somebody who ran away from the battle. A very similar act, like people say for Aurobindo that he ran away from the freedom movement and the battle of
life. Yes.
But it was a divine retreat from mortal thought. He had seen that it can carry us this far but not further. So Sri Krishna also takes him, and he is chasing him to a cave where, of course, there is a prophecy which has to be fulfilled of a rishi called Muchkund, who suddenly opens his eyes and sees Kaliyavan, and he is demolished. So sometimes strategic retreats are much better than fighting with when you don't have the adequate arms and ammunition. So you have to first grow into that stature before you can impose that silence on the world of mind, on vital, on the physical itself. So this is a retreat.
And on the physical plane,
yes,
some of the greatest retreats have led to victory.
Absolutely. On the physical plane, absolutely. And then naked of its vesture of humanity. So we have another story. Aurobindo has immortalized this story in a poem of his, the Triumph Song of Trishanku. So Trishanku is a very interesting character. He is a king who wants to go to the highest heavens, but in a human body. And he tries and he's sent back, he tries and he's sent back. Even Vishwamitra adds his tapasya, but he cannot. Because the human consciousness is fundamentally a limited consciousness. If it breaks through while remaining human, then there will be an imbalance created in the world. So it must first purify itself, must change the inner consciousness before it can break beyond the magic fence. That's why the mother used the word reversal of consciousness. But if we want to remain human and suddenly walk into the supramental world, it won't happen. It's not allowed. So he is naked of its vesture of humanity, because thus alone he can, tower into pathless heights.
And then look what happens.
And then it's a very, very powerful passage. As thus it rose to meet him bare and pure. Once again we have the suggestion of bareness and purity. A strong descent leaped down, a might, a flame, a beauty half visible with deathless eyes, a violent ecstasy, a sweetness dire. Enveloped him with its stupendous limbs and penetrated nerve and heart and brain, that thrilled and fainted with the epiphany. His nature shuddered in the unknown's grasp. Now, there is a stage in Aurobindo's yoga when he says that Krishna and Kali, he was very much identified with them in his inner consciousness. Of course, Krishna's descent into the physical is a later event. But several times he would spend, as he has said, days and nights in the arms of the Anandamaya Krishna. He has spoken of that which Krishna should I argue for or against. So, and Kali. And it's very interesting that these two, this line which contains two phrases, half a phrase, it reminds me somehow of Krishna and Kali, a violent ecstasy, a sweetness dire.
And I remember that beautiful sentence when he says to Dilip Kumar Roy, if you can give yourself to Krishna,
Yes,
you can give yourself to me.
Absolutely. So here is the violent ecstasy. The Divine Mother as Kali.
Yes.
Violent, but full of the ecstasy, the ananda, which we experience when we are liberated from the cagings of the ego. And sweetness, Krishna, being of sweetness, yet dire on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He brooks no resistance, destroys all obstacles, clears the passage not just for a human being but for a whole civilization. So, these lines remind me of that. And then again, amazing, in a moment shorter than death, longer than time. What is that touch of the eternal? Sudden, as if in a moment everything is changed. That's the reversal about. And yet, it is something for which we have waited for centuries. That one moment leaves an imprint for ages to come. So it is longer than time. Nothing can wash, nothing can remove that touch which lingers, leaves an indelible trace. Very often that's what I feel about the ashram. People ask all kinds of questions, some simple, some naive, some mischievous, all kinds of things. And, they ask this about ashram, that about ashram. But, my very simple answer is, which I can share, that ashram is not about the people and the events, the everyday life and the going-ons, etc. Ashram is where the mother and Sri Aurobindo have left their divine imprint on every stone, every brick, every grain of sand.
Yes.
And it is an imprint which nothing can efface. Just a little receptivity and we receive it. And the samadhi, the vibrating center. Even if nothing else is there, forget about everything else, but just to sit and breathe that atmosphere. So it is something which, for all time to come, it will be remembered, as the mother has said, that Sri Aurobindo's birth will be remembered as long as earth lasts.
Yes.
Longer than time.
Shorter than death.
Shorter than death. Look at what happened here. The supramental manifestation of 29th February.
Yes.
What was that moment? Shorter than death. Suddenly a massive downpour.
Yes.
And yet, its impact, it goes on and on and on, continues.
And that question asked to Mother, why are we here?
Why are we here?
And she says so simply, to please Sri Aurobindo.
Please, yes. So it's something very beautiful. And again, see this amazing, by a power more ruthless than love, happier than heaven. Can we imagine love can be ruthless? It is, we were talking about oxymorons. There should be a term about this.
That's an oxymoron, yes.
Or probably an oxy-phrase or something like that.
But I think violent ecstasy and dire sweetness.
Why? They are all, absolutely. Through these paradoxes, through these, seeming opposites,
Yes.
contradictions.
Yes.
And this is a sign, because in the divine, these contradictions are united and they change their character. This is what the mother said.
Yes.
She said, in the divine, the good and the evil unite. So then, she realized, she understood that what she has spoken is a very high experience. And we earthlings will understand it very differently. So we would mean, okay, good and evil are same, so we can do what we like. So she gave a comment after that. What I mean is that they both change their character, not only evil but also good, and become something else. So look at this: sweetness, dire, violent ecstasy.
Yes.
Things which are contradictory by their nature, and they come together and change their character. And now this,
Yeah. How can something be happier than heaven?
heaven, and ruthless.
Yes.
To start with, by a power more ruthless than love. Love is ruthless because it brooks no resistance between the lover and the beloved. It can be ruthless. It won't allow anything eventually to come between the object of love. That's how Sri Aurobindo speaks about cruelty, the birth of cruelty, which is the opposite and yet it carries within itself the seed of love and Ananda. How it is born. That's how the divine can snatch everything because he loves us. It's a very interesting small little poem of Tagore where he says that he whom you choose to bear the burden of your universal love, Jake tomi bahite chaho apar premer bhar. It's not easy to bear the burden of love. So what you do? Eke bare sobai tumi ghochaye dao tar. In one go, you snatch away all his supports. Mother speaks about that. If you come to the divine, you have to be ready to hang with nothing but faith. All your supports will be taken away from you. Your country, and you have to make a choice. Your country, your religion, your family lies there, the divine. So, it's ruthless to a unchaste consciousness, to an uninitiated consciousness. It will interpret this divine love as ruthless.
Yes.
So it's ruthless. But here is a power more ruthless than love. Look at this. Whatever we can conceive of as love, it goes beyond it.
Even Christ
Yes.
said, give up everything.
Everything.
Follow me.
Follow me. Absolutely. Absolutely. Happier than heaven. And what does it do then? Taken sovereignly into eternal arms. Hailed. Look at the power of these lines. Hailed and coerced by a stark, absolute bliss. When you were speaking of 67 about Savitri, I was reminded of that 67 message, New Year message, where the mother says that this wonderful world of delight waiting at our gates for our call to come. And then she was asked that, is she still waiting? Mother says she has been waiting since long. She came during Aurobindo, when he was physically here. So why hasn't she come down? She says she needs at least one person, and not of course she and Aurobindo, one person who could be she uses the word super Parsifal, pure, pristine, white, plastic, fully receptive and open, who could receive her. And then she particularly says, super Parsifal, she describes, who should have not even a trace of hankering after any kind of pleasure. Because it's the great obstacle. So that's how, because Ashwapati's being is, filled with this purity, that suddenly he is carried by this bliss. And what does it do? Hailed, coerced. Oh. You know how parents play with children? Throw them up in the air and then take them back into their arms. Hailed and coerced. Somebody who is very much your own. In a whirlwind circuit of delight and force, hurried into unimaginable depths, borne into immeasurable heights, it was torn out from its mortality, his being, torn out. So this is the divine action of grace. Once we submit ourselves to the grace, once we give ourselves entirely to the grace, then what does it do? Then we don't have to do anything. It is capable of doing everything. Look at the power contained in all this. This delight which carries us to impenetrable depths. She will carry us upborne to unimaginable heights. And then torn out from mortality. We are released as it were. This is a great liberation. And underwent a new and boneless change. What is that change? An omniscient knowing without sight or thought. So this whole transformation is an act of grace done by the descent of the Shakti. All that we have to do is to open ourselves, to prepare ourselves, and all the methods of yoga, primarily in this yoga, aspiration, rejection and surrender, is only to prepare ourselves for the grace. That itself will not transform, but it will create conditions that are ready. sincerity, faith, they create conditions for the grace. When that grace will come, we do not know. It's a moment shorter than death. It's a very nice prayer of Mirabai, the saint. And she says, I am alert and awake whole night. Why? Adhi Raat Prabhu Darshan Denge Prem Nadi ke Tira. Who knows that at midnight he may come on the shores, on the banks of the river of love. So I have to keep awake. I don't know when he will come. Shabri, waiting for 35 years for a lot to come. What that moment will be, we do not know. Moment shorter than death, but longer than time. So we have this, and when it comes, then everything changes. Everything is justified, everything is fulfilled, everything is transformed.
Bornless, without
Bornless,
any limitation,
without
no
any
dimension.
Because it's the infinite power.
Yes.
She is the Shakti of the infinite. An omniscient knowing without sight or thought. An indecipherable omnipotence. It's almost like that miracle becomes a way of life and we don't know how and why. Indecipherable. We have lost the head and tail of it. We have lost track of how this power is working. Impossible things become suddenly possible. And we can't understand the process, the way, the method, because she can use anything and everything, even the most insignificant material, event, circumstance, for that change.
Today's impossibles
Are tomorrow's, yes.
the future's base.
Future space.
Yes.
A mystic form that could contain the worlds, yet make one human breast its passionate shrine. Look, the paradoxes.
Oh, yes.
Constantly. This another image is another paradox. The divine who holds the whole world within himself. Worlds, not world.
Worlds.
And yet can suddenly make one human breast his shrine. And drew him out of his seeking loneliness into the magnitudes of God's embrace. How beautiful. There are two kinds of loneliness. One is the despairing loneliness, which most human beings, I am alone. Mother said it's a grace that you are alone.
Yes.
So this is one kind of loneliness. And even she says if you can't enjoy loneliness, you are not ready for the spiritual life. It's a sign. If you enjoy loneliness, it's one of the signs of readiness for the spiritual life.
Recall Amal's poem, Alone with the Alone. Sri Aurobindo talks to him about
Yes.
Alone with the alone.
Yes. But there is another kind of loneliness, the seeking loneliness, where you are with a crowd, you may be with multitude, and yet you are alone because you are seeking that which is missing. It doesn't matter. You may be with a whole world of beings, and yet it is a seeking loneliness because you feel the missing of that one who alone can fulfill yourself. So one is an outer loneliness, and people even sometimes spiritually they isolate themselves and they think that it's a condition and I'll find the divine. That Sri Aurobindo used to repeatedly say, if you try that, you are more likely to lose your mind. That's not what is, forced isolation and I'll find the divine. No, this seeking loneliness is experienced in a multitude, amidst a multitude of things. A buzz with creation, surrounded with crowds, and yet it's a seeking loneliness because he whom you want is not yet there. And when he comes, he draws us out and puts us into the magnitudes of God's embrace. As when a timeless eye annuls the hours, abolishing the agent and the act, so now his spirit shone out wide, blank, pure. So now his spirit shone out wide, blank, pure. Who is the doer and what is the deed? When he alone is abolishing the agent and the act. How powerful.
And this beautiful line.
His vacant mind became an empty slate. His vacant mind became an empty slate on which the universal and soul could write. And what he wrote? We have all the volumes of the Arya, the letters, and eventually Savitri. He says the brain and the hands were used. Directly the force came and transmitted itself.
And he once said he could write hundreds of
Hundreds.
philosophical
Yes,
things.
yes.
How would it help?
Yes, because it's infinite.
Yes.
All that represses our fallen consciousness. See, this is very interesting because a little bit from the background of psychology. Freudians speak a lot about repression. And they say that mankind suffers because it has repressed the darker side. This, darker side is repressed because it is unacceptable to the ego, and it comes out in various kinds of, concealed and various ways that the ego brings it out. But this is not the only thing that is repressed. We suffer from repression of the divine within. The divine is repressed. And what represses it, that is removed. Look at the whole reversal of viewpoint.
Yes.
In Freudian psychology, what is repressed is the dark side of life. It is there in everyone. We don't see it, we don't acknowledge it, and yet it comes out in dreams, in slips of the tongue, in everyday life. But Aurobindo says the spiritual view is what is repressed is the divine consciousness. And it too comes in dreams, in intimations, in suggestions of the beyond. And when this power comes, it takes away that which is repressing it. Look at this wonderful line. All that represses our fallen consciousness was taken from him like a forgotten load, a fire that seemed the body of a god. Suddenly this fire, even this thing about the fire which is covered with all kinds of logs, but is seething inside. This image comes, it's there in one of the Upanishads, that this fire which is burning under logs which are wet, and they are smothering it, but it continues to burn, smolder, but you can't see it. But if you remove the logs, you suddenly see the fire and it begins to blaze, because the logs which are nearer to it are warmer and are ready to burn. So all that represses, when that is removed, suddenly it burns and burns bright. And thus his body, his being looks a fire that seemed the body of a god, consumed the limiting figures of the past and made large room for a new self to live. So we don't have space for God. Of course, we all have some puja rooms. We all have some little corner where we put mother's picture. Or we carry Aurobindo in our pockets, in our purses. But he doesn't stay there. He starts from there and slowly begins to snatch everything till there is nothing else left but him. So this is if we bring God and keep him in a cupboard, we should be very careful, because he is going to escape very soon from the cupboard. It's a known technique of his, tricks of the trade. Enter into our bedroom, into our business room, even into our bathroom, and make sure that eventually there is no place left for us. He alone is. So look at this line. Consume the limiting figures of the past and made large room for a new self to live. He consumes everything to which we were attached, to which we loved and cherished, so that he alone can dwell there. Two very interesting incidents of Navjatji, Bhaiji, one was that, he once asked Mother, I can remember you at all times except when I eat. So mother asked him a question. Do you eat with people? He said, yes, mother. My family and some people are there. He said, that is why. Started eating alone. Now you see, suddenly that snatching away. And the other is a very sweet incident. That once he had fever and mother came to visit his room. And while inquiring about him, she sat on his cot. The Navjatji, after that, he would not sleep on that cot. He started sleeping on the floor. That now mother has come and sat here. How can I sleep on this? So everything is taken away. And you are left in God's embrace. How beautiful it is. Eternity's contact broke the molds of sense. This world is nothing but a mold. It's not real, but something which is an image conjured by the senses. Molds. The reality throws itself into certain figures which are nothing but patterns. And how does it do it? Through the trick of the senses. That is gone. Molds of sense. A greater force than the earthly held his limbs. Huge workings bared his undiscovered sheaths. Strange energies wrought and screamed, tremendous hands unwound the triple cord of mind and freed the heavenly wideness of a Godhead's gaze. So one is that the different sheaths, the different bodies. Yogis speak about 7, Mother speaks about 12. And all these sheaths are discovered simply by the act of grace. So see, in this whole yoga, there is no process and method, but the descent of the Shakti which does everything. And then this is directly a story from the Vedas.
The triple cord of mind.
The triple cord.
Yes.
The story of Sun Shape. So he is the son of a rishi and he is tied on the stake to be devoured. Much like Perseus and Andromeda. It's a symbolic story. So he prays and seeks, if somebody can do a yagna for him to free him, but nobody is able to free him. Then he prays to Varuna. Varuna is, by the way, a very interesting god of Indian mythology, who is originally a god, then he becomes a dark deity. It's a very fascinating god. So Varuna comes and he sees that Sun Shape is tied by 3 cords. So he cuts open the top cord and throws it above. Cuts open the middle cord and throws it on the sides. Cuts open the lower cord and throws it below. So the triple cord, the rational mind, the vital mind, the physical mind, if we refer to the mind, or we can say the cord of the triple world, physical, vital, mental, which bind the soul, don't allow it to go up. And we become like sacrificial goats on the stake of the universe. Sometimes there are some funny sights that meet your eye. One is when a butcher is carrying a goat to sacrifice. And 2 thoughts that I have had. Once when I saw this sight and the goat was happily going, munching grass, I said, this is ignorance. We too are carried like this towards the mouth of death and we go munching pleasures and we think, so nice. I am being carried on a motorcycle because the goat was carried from a motorcycle. And the second was, I said, the butcher doesn't know the Upanishadic phrase that the eater eating himself is eaten. He is sacrificing the goat and the gods are sacrificing him. He too is a sacrificial goat on the altar of life. Only he is sacrificing himself for family, for food, for money, all the things that never belong to him, and yet he believes it. So you see, this vastness here, it's really referring to the same story because it speaks about the wideness, and Varuna is the god of vastness. So the upper cord, it changes, it's thrown above. So his mind grows into that light, the vastness. The middle chord is thrown into the horizontally. So this knot of the vital ego, suddenly he grows into the cosmic consciousness. And the lower chord is thrown below. So even the subconscious terrain now pass into his charge and are illumined with that light, and his being becomes one. So it's a very amazing, description of that. The heavenly wideness of a Godhead's gaze. As through a dress the wearer's shape is seen, there reads through forms to the hidden absolute a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. When someone asked Sri Aurobindo, Dr. Manilal, and he used to doubt, and he had his Jain background. So he said, sir, when you see me, you say that everywhere there is Brahman. What does it mean? So Sri Aurobindo gives this example that when I see you, who knows himself as Dr. Manilal, I see Brahman who has become Dr. Manilal. And then of course we know that famous poem, Despair on the Staircase, where he looks at a cat and sees the fur-footed Brahman. So that form which hides the absolute, suddenly that is unveiled to the sight. And therefore it gives a cosmic feeling. Because then only we can have the true cosmic vision and a cosmic feeling, because we see the divine everywhere. As long as we don't have this, we cannot really experience it. So here we have this cosmic feeling and transcendent sight. Then only we can love even the ugly, the hideous, because we see our lover is there. How can we not love? Because he whom we love inhabits that. Mother says that in one of her prayers, that when the Lord manifests, the whole earth will rise in revolt, and yet thou wilt take it in your powerful arms of love, and it will be saved. So this experience, which alone can really liberate us from cabins of dualities that Ashupati is experiencing. Increased and heightened were the instruments. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens. Everything is very beautiful. So normally what is this illusion and this aggrandizing lens? Things which are of no significance or little importance appear vast. Oh my God, what will happen? Some people, speak about coming to Pondicherry. I am, in this context. Oh, if I come, where will we live? House? How about our earning, money, all this? So when people ask me, at least I say, if you are having these concerns, don't come. Because this is the other way. This is an illusion. We are trapped in an illusion. The other is the other way around. You are so much moved by the call that you come. And the rest finds its place. So that which is important, the divine, that appears as last. Okay, when all these are there, settled, then I will seek the divine and I'll find. But first I need to sort out these things. This is the illusion. If you find the divine, or if you turn to the divine, everything else is taken care of automatically. Yes. Because that is the real, the unique, the sole power which governs this creation. But look at the illusion's aggrandizing lens. Ego, I can judge the divine, I can know the divine. Aggrandizing. The human mind, often when people talk about, again, judging Sri Aurobindo and all these things. So sometimes, of course, there are different ways you deal with different people. But once in a while I have asked this question, okay, all this is very nice, you're talking about Sri Aurobindo and, have your own judgments and opinions. Tell me what's going to happen next moment. I don't know. I said, you don't know what's going to happen next moment. You don't know what is beyond this wall. And you are talking about someone before whom time became a single body, space a single book. Look at the contrast. Forget about other things. So you see this aggrandizing lens of the illusion. My ego, my mind. So the first thing in spiritual life we learn is, Mother speaks about it, that the mind cannot judge spiritual things. It's aggrandizing lens.
Yes, and Sri Aurobindo, he always has the perfect word
Yes.
in the perfect line.
Yes.
And this aggrandizing,
Yes.
making
It's a
larger
lens.
and
It's
larger.
not true.
No.
But the ego believes it. And then you see the measures. What happens when it loses? As from her failing hand, the measures fell. Atomic looked the things that loomed so large. Oh, my life, my body, what is going to happen? Who will take care? Some people are so much, who will take care of me in old age? Hurry, who is taking care of you? Sometimes, once when somebody was bogged down with this, who will take care? Who will take care? I said, wait, come. I don't have a mental answer to it, but I have a real life answer to it. So I took the person out into the garden. This in Bangalore. I had a chamber there, office. So I took the person out and said, what do you see? What do I see? Plants and all that. I said, look, you will see some plenty of living beings. There are insects, there are lizards, there are squirrels, birds and so many. Yes. Who takes care of them? He who takes care of this creation will take care of you. He will have means and instruments. He is not confined. You believe that only through this person I can be cared. Therefore, he says he plays according to our terms. But if you let him play with his terms, then things will change, because he can feed with 1,000 hands, just as he feeds the birds in the sky. And he can safeguard against the greatest calamities of nature, as he saves that little bird in a storm. But we believe that only these are mine and they will take care. All these measures fall away. And then we discover the little ego's ring could join no more in the enormous spaces of the self. The body now seemed only a wandering shell. His mind, the many frescoed outer coat of an imperishable inhabitant. Mind, thoughts, opinions, viewpoints, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. It's all laughable. All right, these are all necessary stages. We don't even know that we are pushed to think by forces which are beyond our control. We are pushed to write, paint, speak things which may be destructive of a civilization. And we speak about mind as the ultimate. But when we discover that, we see mind, not just one. This one mind is what? Not even a room. Mind, the realm of mind is a many frescoed court. All the minds in the universe, and the mind which holds all these many minds is nothing but a court. And we are wandering and loitering there while the divine inhabitant, the supreme beloved, waits. Well, it's like you go to a king's palace and you are happy with the orchard, or maybe you are arguing with the guard sentry. Instead of saying that, look, the king has called me, you can check it. We say, no, why you won't allow me an entry? We get into useless arguments, or we look at a cinema theater and say, okay, we'll meet the king later. This is a nice movie running in the town. Many frescoed court. So what he discovers? His mind, the many frescoed outer court of an imperishable inhabitant. 2 more lines and then we will pause.
Yes.
His spirit breathed a superhuman air. We breathe poison. We don't realize it. A worse kind of pollutant are our thoughts, much more dangerous than these trucks and vehicles. And I wish there was a measure of that pollutant. And recently an event reminds me that how our thought pollutions are more dangerous. You see what happened, what was this company? Volkswagen. And it was showing,
yes.
you know this scam?
Oh, yes.
See, this story worked at 2 levels. So they found, this company was saying that, we have zero pollution or very little minimum pollution. And so it was selling, and it was therefore because of, They said we are the least polluting, and so it had a very high esteem. But behind this least pollution was a pollution of thought. Actually, the machinery was tweaked in such a way that when it was static, then it showed perfect. But the moment the vehicle was running on the roads, software was like that. It was fooling people, because whenever you do emission tests, you do it when a vehicle is standing and you assist on the engine.
Right.
You can't do a pollution test on a running vehicle. But the moment it started running, the pollution levels were 3, 4, 5, 6 times higher.
And they got caught.
They got caught. Now, not only they discovered many of these, Mercedes-Benz, all these companies were doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Now look at the fallout of this. The fallout is that there was so much hue and cry about pollution in the third world countries and much less pollution in the developed country, that myth got busted. Because, the very pollution index you were, doing by these, we such clean and green. But now this double pollution, one is the outer pollution, but the other is the pollution of thought, which was far worse.
Yes.
Something which was deceiving, which was, trying to fabricate and giving poison. So that's why the mother says, in this world we breathe poison, we breathe desires, we breathe anger, we breathe fear, and it affects us, it makes us sick.
Yes.
But now his spirit is breathing a superhuman air. Oh, beautiful. And this last line, the imprisoned deity rent its magic fence. So
This word rent tore it apart.
Yes. So we'll stop here and
Yes.
continue next
Next Thursday.
Thursday.